Welcome to Up to Speed, where we catch up to the world of gaming and esports. I'm your host, Clutch, and today we're going to say farewell to LucasArts, one of the titans in the world of video game development. Lucas was founded in May 1982 by George Lucas himself. Say what you will about the man who was responsible for the original trilogy as well as the prequels. Mr. George Lucas has been involved in such a crucial way for the development and advancement of technology for movies as well as television, sound, and video games. Today we're going to take a look back at some of the amazing games that came out of the LucasArts development team as well as some of their licensed products as we say goodbye to the end of an era. First off, we're going to take a look at action games. In particular, Indiana Jones and Secret of Monkey Island. Now, Indiana Jones to me is, of course, one of my favorite iconic characters growing up. And the game I first played for this IP was Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine for PC. Now, this game was a lot of fun. It took you into the world of Indiana Jones, past the films. You got to explore a really exotic place and search for different components of the Infernal Machine. One of my favorite moments when I received this game for my birthday is Indy looked up to a wall and saw something protruding out of the side, proceeded to move his hat and say, that looks whippable. For any player that was new to the game, they automatically knew that you need to take out your whip, throw it up to that place, and swing across. And it became a quote among my friends whenever we saw things in real life. So that was a treasure to experience. But the first game when it came to the 3D world that LucasArts produced was Grim Fandango. This is on the top 10 list for many, many game developers as well as game fans on how to tell a very, very compelling story in an action-adventure type game. We'll talk about the designer of that game, Tim Schafer, a little bit later on in the show. The first in-house developed game by LucasArts was a Star Wars game. That game was X-Wing. This game was phenomenal. Back in the days of floppy drives, you could relive the different engagements in very, very low bitrate graphics of the different Star Wars engagements in aerial combat. The sequel to that game was TIE Fighter. Another game I received for my birthday, this time it was on floppies as well. I proceeded to buy the collector's CD-ROM. You could play the side of the Empire, unlock different components for your different TIE Fighters, and again, relive different stages of the films themselves. The legacy of these Star Wars games continued through Rogue Squadron. Many of us love to play that game on the Nintendo 64. Again, you got to relive so many of the amazing moments in the different films to be able to pilot an X-Wing through the Death Star, to take out the different towers, and to go through the trenches before launching that proton torpedo. Or even fighting on the planet of Hoth, realizing how to actually fire your tow cable as Wedge Antilles is trying to bark orders at you to take down the AT-AT walkers. And once you realize how to do it, to be able to circle around with your amazing piloting and with the third-dimensional graphics that was new to a lot of us in aerial combat, it truly was a treasure to play. And it continued that legacy further and further on with many, many different games and different aerial combat games attached to the Star Wars universe from LucasArts. In 1995, the first-person shooter Star Wars Jedi Knight was released. Now, the series continued into its fifth installment, Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, which we see here. It was released in 2003. With its compelling story and much desired lightsaber gameplay, the series was a critical success and had a really, really amazing story to partake of. Now, there's one more game I'd like to highlight for some of the old school gamers out there, and that is Shadows of the Empire. How could you forget this classic on the Nintendo 64? You got to play the main character, Dash Rendar, a mercenary, sort of like Han Solo, but not quite, and get to fight the likes of an AT-ST and Boba Fett himself. The game was very, very difficult for me at a young age, but it was a treasure to enjoy, and if you beat it on hard mode, you found out that Dash Rendar did not die in the end, but did survive. Classic, classic games that have been a part of many, many games, cultures, and libraries for a long, long time. Moving further and further into the generation of games, we're going to move into the 2000s now. In 2003, another game was released, and the world of interactive storytelling would change forever. That game, Knights of the Old Republic. The gameplay was an RPG, a role-playing game. You could choose your look, your class, and the powers you wish to wield. Leveling up increased your power, and it was based on a turn-based style combat system. The story, which is unforgettable to anyone that ever experienced it. You had interaction with almost all characters in the game and would bring up a dialogue menu system. After each statement, you could choose your response. Character backstory, motive, stakes, romantic chemistry, all developed from these conversations. Each battle felt more dangerous, each victory more sweet, because you were fighting along companions that you, the player, had an emotional investment in that continued to grow with each line of dialogue. The twist, the huge twist in this game, blew minds everywhere. Everyone was so enraptured with what this gameplay was like for BioWare and for LucasArts. In a world still recovering from the now faded genius of M. Night Shyamalan, the reveal that you, the main player character, was Darth Revan was incredible. Now let's take a look and take a trip down memory lane as we take a look at this incredible moment.
You mean you don't know? All this time and you still haven't figured it out. I wonder how long you would have stayed blind to the truth. Surely some of what you once were must have surfaced by now. Even the combined power of the Jedi Council couldn't keep your true identity buried forever, could it?
The Jedi do not believe in killing their prisoners. No one deserves execution, no matter what their crimes.
The Council would not normally accept an adult for training, but this is a special case.
They say the Force can do terrible things to a mind. It can wipe away your memories and destroy your very identity.
Tatooine. Kashyyyk. Manaan. Korriban. Revan visited each of these worlds searching for clues to reveal the hidden location of the Starforge.
The lure of the dark side is difficult to resist. I fear this quest to find the Starforge could lead you down an all too familiar path.
What greater weapon is there than to turn an enemy to your cause, to use their own knowledge against them?
You cannot hide from what you once were, Revan. Recognize that you were once the Dark Lord, and know that I have taken your place.
Malik. Man, what a bad guy, and what an incredible, incredible turn of events when you find out that the Jedi Council had wiped your memory and used the instincts within you as a character to go through the different planets, find those different artifacts that were necessary to know where the Starforge was. When that revelation happened, I freaked out. When I first played Knights of the Old Republic, it was after a LAN party I had at my house in Kansas years and years ago. My friends were telling me about it. I started playing it on a Friday night. I played all day Saturday, all day Sunday until about 4 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning. I decided to skip school the next day and continue to play it. Sorry, Mom and Dad, but that's what happens. I was not sick, and I loved that game so much that I probably played through about 3 or 4 more times. I wasn't really into the sequel. It was still really cool to go back to that universe. The story to me wasn't as solid, but I will always, always remember that game and that amazing experience. So, after a trip down memory lane, I'm a little bit verklempt. Anyways, storytelling reached new heights in the world of video games, and BioWare firmly placed themselves on the map of game developers, thanks to LucasArts. Let's take a look now at the next generation of consoles and the next generation of games. Games like Bounty Hunter with a fantastic story, and Battlefront, who people in the chat are going crazy about. Here you had sort of Battlefield-type mechanics in a Star Wars-themed universe. Choose your class, choose your weapons, choose your vehicles. It was all-out awesome battle chaos going on different planets. People love this series. They're still waiting for a Battlefront 3, We don't know if we're going to get it, but it was in development, or some rumors were flying around that it was in development at least. We had prequel tie-ins to many of the prequel movies that came out. Some were great, some were pretty fun in the very small components or parts that they were, like the pod racer game or the adventure type action game that you play that pretty much just plays out the movie in a story format, but you as different player characters. However, there was one game that was released after the prequels, and that game was The Force Unleashed.
Vader can't stop me now.
Amazing. That's what Jedi should be, right? The Force Unleashed followed Starkiller, that main character which you saw in the cinematic. Someone that was trained by Darth Vader after the prequels were completed and before the original trilogy. You go through different missions to find the different rebellious groups to the Empire, be able to harness them into one area, which allows the Emperor and Darth Vader himself to crush the entire Rebel Alliance in one blow. You get to meet various characters, different characters from the prequels all the way to the original trilogy. And Starkiller explores the world of his emotions and dealing with real people outside of the Sith or Jedi training, and realizing that love is definitely worth fighting for. Now, in the end, Starkiller does die up against the Emperor, sacrificing himself for his friends to escape and for the Rebel Alliance to actually be a cohesive unit to fight against the Empire. To me, it was one of the greatest writing abilities that I've seen featured in a Star Wars game from the writing team, and to be able to bridge the prequels to the original trilogy was fantastic. However, the sequel, The Force Unleashed 2, did not rise to the occasion. You were a clone, which you weren't really emotionally invested in. You thought, how many clones of this guy are there? And the story was rushed. It was too short. The gameplay mechanics were still good, and you could actually chop off the limbs of stormtroopers and do what the same as pretty much what you saw in that cinematic of destroy them, literally, by sheer ease, it seemed. But it did not have the same emotional impact or character development that we saw in the first game. This could have been a sign of the demise of LucasArts in terms of sales going down and their products being rushed. But that is just speculation and hearsay. I did purchase the game. I did enjoy it. But if you want to really, really experience an incredible, incredible game that ties very well into the Star Wars sextology, I don't even know how to say six, the prequels and the original trilogy, definitely pick up the first game. And you can on Steam. It's definitely available on sale for PC. Another game, another franchise that became huge in recent years was the Lego franchise. This was a sleeper hit when the first game came out. I purchased it, I think at a GameStop on PC, and played it, and I was like, this is fun. This is fun to play. The characters don't talk at all, so it's miming what the reactions are and has a funny little take on different scenes. However, people loved it, and they made a sequel and some other iterations in different franchises, such as Batman and Indiana Jones. Now, we're going to talk about some MMOs. We're going to get a little bit heavy in here because there is so much time and money that goes into the development of massive multiplayer online games. But the first MMO to come out for Star Wars was Star Wars Galaxies. This was pre-World of Warcraft. Talk about a game that you could do almost anything with exploration and understanding different combat mechanics and different classes you could be. It was incredible to be able to walk the plains of Tatooine and find the Sarlacc pit or find a Krayt dragon or tackle on a Rancor. The combat system itself was not completely perfect. There were a lot of issues, especially with PvP. You had a certain class called the Terakasai Master that would demolish everything. It was basically like a Ret Paladin in World of Warcraft for a while. They would destroy everything on the planet, it seemed. However, the ability to create a clan and to make your own city on the planet and have enough people that come to your city to make a shuttle bay. That shuttle bay can go to different cities. And an even bigger city could have a starport. That starport could go to different planets. And to build up an economy inside of your city was amazing. And the PvP was so much fun. For example, you would take a shuttle to Mos Eisley. You go into the cantina, you take some missions, and a couple people start landing in the shuttle. And I was on the Republic side because, I was young. I didn't want to be the bad guy yet. And they're shouting, the imps are coming, the imps are coming. The imps was a shortened version of the Imperials. And so we all gather into the cantina and we throw out some battle plans. We realize, okay, here's what's going to go down as soon as they land. Here comes a shuttle. 50 Imperials land, and it's straight on laser fighting everywhere. For some reason, I decided to be a two-hander, which I had this big hammer, not a lightsaber at all, because you couldn't be a Jedi yet. You had to try to unlock it. And I'm trying to do as much damage as I can with my hammer, and I'm not really doing much. But it still was so much fun to be involved in such huge battles anywhere on any planet. And the environment's really cool. The music was fantastic. They did make some changes to the combat, and that's when people started to leave. But not before they had an incredible expansion pack, and that's called Jump to Light Speed. Here you were on a planet with a character. You can go to different planets. Now, you could piece together your own ship, buy different components, talk to different merchants, be able to craft different items to build a Y-Wing, an A-Wing, an X-Wing, and to be able to fly that ship in space in Twitch-based missions. What I mean by Twitch is not a random number generator or an RPG-type element. It's you actually flying the ship and having dogfights one-on-one and doing different missions. It was a blast. It was a breath of fresh air into the game. It felt like a completely new game, but still was tied to your character in the MMO format. Unfortunately, with more combat changes and more changes in around Jedis and different classes, many people left the game to play. The biggest game during the time was World of Warcraft, especially on the PC. However, LucasArts was not done when it came to MMOs. They did shut down the servers in December of 2011, I believe, for Star Wars Galaxies, but the servers opened up just weeks later for a new MMO. It was called The Old Republic. This was a sequel taking place after Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. A huge, massive undertaking by BioWare, who were masters of the RPG storytelling world for video games. You had different classes, 2 different factions in the Star Wars universe thousands of years before the original trilogy was released. Here you understood the power struggle of the Sith and the Old Republic, of the idealism between the light side and the dark side of the Force, and the people that were trapped in between. So many different key moments in the game were amazing to me, as I was able to play a Sith Inquisitor. Sith Inquisitor is kind of like a wizard or a caster on the side of the Empire. But I chose the light side for my choices, and because of that, I was a walking conundrum for many different people on different planets. I had a certain mentality, a certain devotion to not some theocratic understanding of the Force by the Jedi, or a passion play, almost tyrannical understanding of the Force via the Sith. I lived the Sith code, which was passion before peace, and on about looking out for myself. But it was that code that I lived by that I had more power to enact good in the universe. I wasn't held back by strict codes or not getting involved. And to me, that is theocratic understandings of the Force that Star Wars hasn't explored yet, but still exists in that universe. And I feel is such an untapped resource for so many incredible stories that could come out of the franchise, and hopefully we'll see in episodes 7, 8, and 9. When you take a step back and realize that Anakin Skywalker fulfilled the prophecy. The prophecy was one would bring balance to the Force, and he brought balance by destroying 2 corrupt systems. The Jedi were corrupt, and the Sith were corrupt. And that is pretty deep, but pretty cool for the Old Republic to explore in a single-player-like environment, even though it was an MMO, but going through the story as a Sith Inquisitor, I loved it. And what was really brought out was the love interest for the Sith Inquisitor by the name of Ashara Zavros. She's a Jedi Padawan who you meet on some of your missions, and you realize she's coming from this Jedi code which she really believes in, and you're showing her, you're telling her, the Sith code is not this evil tyrannical code that these leaders are using to destroy the Empire. They say that, but they have such lofty evil goals, and you explain to her that she is more empowered by being able to live her passion and do the things that she feels instead of having to hold back all the time like what the Jedi teach her. You fall in love because of it. And to me, it's a very palpable romantic chemistry between 2 fictional characters in an MMO. You would think 5-10 years ago that's impossible. How could you have any story development or emotional connection to characters in a massive multiplayer online to NPCs? Well, BioWare did it. And they did it because they had the license for LucasArts, and to be able to make it inside of a universe that has been wondrous and amazing and fills us with so much awe through our childhood, and yet there's so many places that we have not explored yet that can be a reflection upon our own humanity. So that is how LucasArts has been such an impactful component to the world of video games and storytelling, and it is so sad to see their legacy end. However, it's not the end for the IPs for LucasArts. There are still going to be many Star Wars games, Indiana Jones games, etc., and many talented individuals outside of LucasArts that have been involved in the past, such as Tim Schafer, are creating some very, very intriguing and worthwhile investments in games in the world of development, which is really changing. It is evolving. And to better talk about that, I'm going to invite a guest here after we take a quick commercial break. And we're going to get into the future of the Star Wars IPs, the Indiana Jones IPs, and also the future of game development itself. So I hope you enjoyed this brief but personal history lesson and involvement in wondrous gameplay and stories that LucasArts has been a part of. But when we come back, we're going to talk about the future. Don't go anywhere.